Allison and Bruce Bechtel must cope with their homosexuality, which places them in parallel to a certain extent in the way that all queer people must deal with living in a heteronormative society. However, when viewed individually, Allison and Bruce's means of expressing and living with their sexualities greatly differ. For one, Allison openly presents and explores her sexuality, while her father keeps his mostly hidden. In Fun Home, Allison Bechtel reflects on her father's life as she knew him to further understand both him and herself. She uses him for comparison because both of their lives were shaped through the experiences of being queer, but in very different ways. During Allison's childhood, we see some genderqueerness from both Allison and her father, genderqueer in the way that neither willingly conform to gender stereotypes. Bruce is obsessed with flowers and household upkeep. He uses his children as tools to help create his home improvement projects. Allison, however, resents her father's tastes. She hates anything to do with flowers. She also maintains her hatred of dresses and barrettes as her father consistently imposes these garments onto her. Throughout her youth, she demonstrates an affinity for the butch aesthetic. Here, we see her in awe over a butch truck driver, the first identifiable lesbian she's ever seen. Allison and her father are alike in that both express an element of genderqueerness in their being gay. In this respect, Allison can connect with her father in a very unique and special way. But this shared quality is fundamentally different. Allison is more masculine, while her father is more feminine. This difference often creates conflict between Allison and Bruce during her childhood. Because Bruce conceals his fondness for feminine apparel, he often uses Allison as a sort of dress-up doll through which he can live. Allison's father's imposition often causes distress for her because of her need to express her masculinity. When Allison reaches adulthood, she can freely express herself. After coming out to her family, Allison and her father bond through their experiences despite their budding differences. Thus, their homosexuality forms a basis for their previously non-existent relationship. Here, her father reveals a very personal secret, finally opening up after years of almost complete aloofness. As outsiders in a heteronormative society, Allison and her father also share their appreciation for works of relatable literature. This mutual interest strengthens their relationship, as Bruce passes novels that held a lot of meaning to him down to Allison. Despite this connection that can only be shared between two societally marginalized individuals, Allison is still an individual. She does turn to literature to find representation for herself, but unlike her father, she does not stop at subtle literary parallels from classic novels. Bruce stays closeted and doesn't venture past drawing vague comparisons to fictional characters. Allison, however, seeks out works that explicitly pertain to homosexuality and lesbianism, which are oftentimes blatantly referenced on the covers. She grows tired of her father's suggested means of escaping to literature. She openly explores herself and learns more about her sexuality through literature. Allison also, unlike Bruce, takes an active role in the gay community throughout her college life. Throughout his life, Bruce keeps his sexuality a secret, likely because of the less tolerant mindset of the people in his time. As a result, he creates an emotionally repressive environment and household for his family, which is further pronounced in the way Allison paints her memoir A Gloomy Pale Blue. She portrays every character with unfaltering apathy. But rather than suppress herself, Allison participates in underground lesbian culture, and she barely hesitates to come out to her friends and family. What's most indicative of her openness, however, is her creating Fun Home at all. Not only does Fun Home explicitly depict Allison's own sexual encounters, but it also peels away every layer of her family's facade. In The Essential Dykes to Watch Out For, another of Bechtel's comic books, she discusses her fascination with other lesbians, her desire to be a part of the insurrection. She ventures to these rallies, her own interests and identity trumping her fear of how society may regard her. Allison traces her similarities to her father throughout the comic by juxtaposing Bruce and herself, often during moments when she and Bruce are in direct parallel. Here, for example, Allison and Bruce are both witnessing open gays out in public. This would be a huge deal to Bruce, who never experienced being out of the closet, and to Allison, who for the first time is immersed in an LGBT environment. This image occurs during Allison's portrayal of a dream she has 2 nights before Bruce dies. Allison's choice to include this moment between her and her father indicates that watching the sunset together has a deeper meaning to her. After finally recognizing her deep connections to her otherwise detached father, she must accept that her father is nonetheless too self-constraining to help nurture their budding relationship. Allison views salvaging a relationship with her father to be futile, even if he had not died. Her defeated perspective explains why she so strongly believes he committed suicide. To Allison, his decision meant that he did not see his connection to her as a reason to keep living, but rather that his society was too close-minded to tolerate being alive. This is another instance in which Bechtel juxtaposes herself with Bruce. Here, Allison and Bruce both demonstrate their interests in literature. Allison writes a check for comic books, a genre that has shaped Bechtel's career, and Bruce reads Zelda, a fictional tragedy that Bechtel believes relates heavily to her father. Ultimately, the different outcomes of Allison and Bruce's experiences with being queer are evident in the way they present themselves most recently. On Allison's visit home, when she, and subsequently we as an audience, sees him for the last time, he wears his usual attire. We all know, however, that this is a disguise and that he is too afraid to present himself in a more non-gender conforming sort of way. Allison, on the other hand, currently expresses herself freely. She regularly cross-dresses, despite living in a society in which clothing is still viewed as gender-specific. In this way, she forms her own path, separate from her father, but still remains connected to her beginnings through her memoir. Funholm answers the question posed by Adriel Mitchell in her article Spectral Memory, Sexuality, and Inversion. How closely affiliated are a daughter's open lesbian existence and a father's closeted gay one? Though Allison and Bruce Bechtel must endure the hardships of being gay and have similar means of coping with it, they ultimately differ in how they respond to it. As the direct descendant of a gay man, Allison draws these comparisons throughout her novel to further understand both her father and herself.